Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Welcome to Say Grace, coming to you from the Fourth Hotel today in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm so honored and super excited to welcome my next guest. This is where I read your bio. I'm delighted to welcome Jim Irwin as my guest today. Jim is the president of New City LLC, a commercial real estate development firm based in Atlanta. Over his career, Jim has been responsible for generating over $1 billion in new investments in the United States. Before starting New City, he led the redevelopment of Atlanta's Ponce City Market, one of the largest historic renovations in the country. His recent project, where we're sitting, the Fourth Hotel and Club, a social club and hotel in Atlanta's Fourth Ward, opened in the summer of '24, has received national recognition, including last week, Esquire magazine's one of the best new hotels, not in the South, not in the U.S., in the world. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
So glad to have you. You were, am I correct? Did you tell me at one point you were an engineer by trade?
I dabble as an engineer. I was in college. I changed my major 3 or 4 times, and I thought about engineering at once, but randomly I landed on English.
So tell me how an English major ends up doing this.
Yeah, even the more ironic thing was in my 40s, I found out I actually have mild dyslexia. So,
oh god,
how does a dyslexic English major end
wow.
up in the development business? And I think what I realized is that while actually like sitting and calmly reading is very difficult for me, what's really powerful in my core is like storytelling, and that's really, I think, the theme that sort of that connected the dots for me.
Okay.
Is just thinking of place as a story for people to live and experience.
I love that. So when you got out of college, walk us through.
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
So I ended up interning for a senator in college and loving it. And fell in love with D.C. and the city and just the vibe of it. And so I moved to D.C. and worked there for almost 5 years, and had an incredible experience. And one of the senators that I worked for really encouraged me to go back to business school. And so, being the diligent, employee of a senator, I said yes, sir. And that really planted the seed. So I ended up going back to Emory.
Oh, cool.
From '06 to '07.
Okay.
And with no intentions of, or really not even understanding what real estate was.
Okay.
But
wait a minute. You just said '06 to '07. So you've done all of the, okay. Please keep, you're quite impressive, sir.
No. Well, so I ended up having an incredible time in business school. I landed an internship in real estate the summer of 2006.
Okay.
And just, it was like, again, I didn't know at the time the difference between a broker and an architect and a contractor. Really just totally blank. But it's like the clouds parted and the sun shone down. And what I realized is that a lot of the things that I had loved about Washington, which was just the art of persuasion and getting people to do hard things and casting vision and storytelling, really, is really largely true in the real estate development business. But the difference is you actually get to see it and touch it and enjoy it at the end of the day.
And so you did some interesting things prior to Ponce City, Fort Wayne, Indiana, an FBI building.
Right.
Tell me about, and who was that for, Jamestown?
No, it was the same company that I interned for was a company called Barry Real Estate here in Atlanta.
Okay.
And they had started a lot of different sort of sub businesses the CEO at the time owned 3 minor league baseball teams, and
Oh, wow.
and that my sort of strange combination of political experience helped out because he needed someone who didn't mind going up to Fort Wayne every other week and working with their city council to convince them to let us redevelop a section right in the heart of their city.
Oh, wow.
As a new ballpark, mixed use. It had, it ended up being office and multifamily and all sorts of fun stuff. So they were losing a lot of their college graduates to bigger cities like Chicago and Indianapolis, and they needed kind of a fun core urban place, to sort of draw people together. And so I think part of my story is that I didn't have like a really traditional, structured, process-driven upbringing in real estate. Most people who are in development, have very, they're in multifamily development and they build a very specific kind of project, and the goal is just to do as many as you possibly can. And
Right.
for me, it was like, my first day, it was like, okay, you're in charge of architecture, and here are your architects. And I was like, I don't even know how to read
Wow.
drawings.
I love
I don't
that.
even know. I mean, it's imagine like, sitting down and saying, okay, you're going to cook for the president. And you're like, I don't know how to cook.
Right. Right.
And I was like, I don't know, 27 or something. And I realized that like and it was terrifying, right? Because we have this kickoff meeting, and it's
Right.
not just a project. It's like a project with the mayor in the room and city council, because it was like a test. It's
Right.
like, can these guys do that? And so I realized that the only way that I can kind of get through this is just by asking a lot of questions and not being afraid to ask dumb questions.
Right.
And just kind of not faking it, but just sort of like acting like I was a good question asker,
Right.
And so I just kind of figured it out that way.
And at that stage in your career, what did you find the most satisfying about that process?
The thing that was like, I'm going to nerd out for a second.
Yeah, come on.
So the architects wanted to build a stadium that was sort of what you think of as a traditional American ballpark.
Right.
Think of, any Fenway, Wrigley,
Sure.
great stadiums. It's like the field is at street grade, and there's sort of a fortress of steel
Right.
that sort of is like a monument to baseball that you approach from any direction. And we were really studying cost hard because it was a publicly funded deal. And at the time, I one of the just sort of very innocent questions that I asked is, why are we going up instead of down? And the answer was, well, that's just, I don't know, that's just kind of what you do.
Right. The way we've always
That's
done
how
it.
it's the way we've done it.
Right.
And I said, well, what if we actually went, we excavated and put the field below grade, below the street? And would that cost more or less? And it ended up, not only did it end up costing like millions of dollars less to excavate just to get rid of the dirt,
Right.
but what ended up happening is that the concourse, if you go to Fort Wayne today, the concourse is at field grade. And so when games aren't happening, that actually becomes like a jogging track, and it's a park. And so people can
cool.
actually like go to the stadium and just hang out. And then it started to make sense for the team to leave all the concessions open year round, which they hadn't planned on doing.
Oh, interesting.
And so like, if you're just like hanging out, you could go have a dog
Right.
in the middle of the week. And,
Oh, that's cool.
For lunch. And so it ended up kind of becoming this, these random questions I asked, ended up leading to a better outcome. And I think that, like, at a really young age was super empowering, because it's like, there are some rules like gravity and
Right.
physics that have to
Right.
be,
Right.
that have to be honored. But like, a lot of what we see and experience in the world every day is just kind of because that's just sort of how people do it. And if you just take the time and ask good questions and push a little bit, some rules can be bent and others can be broken.
Right. I talk a lot about staying curious.
Yeah.
We have an emotional quality as part of our hiring process called emotional intelligence, where you're always seeking to learn more.
Right.
And that's one thing I love about hospitality is 35 years in, I'm still a student.
Right.
Makes life so much more interesting.
It's so much more interesting, and I've almost found it's like a discipline now. We've been at it for a few years to stay curious because it's so important, and so trying to like read and travel and see things that because again it's so easy, like entropy. You just like it's like Endako crushes.
Right.
Solid, amazing meal. Let's go do it again and again and again. And and it's like, and that alone takes so much effort, but to actually be curious and to do it better and to push yourself is so important.
In my world, and let's be honest, my staying curious means I'm going to go eat food, which is not the worst exercise to go. Also, hotels, traveling. I also find that I get inspired by other people's work, and when I see people, we're all probably successful people are competitive at some level.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We want to win.
Sure.
But when some of my peers who don't ever go see what their peers are doing, I never understand that. I don't know if it's an insecurity. They're afraid that somebody might be doing it better, where when I see somebody doing it better, I'm like, we need to learn from this.
Totally.
You know?
And that's the great thing about our business is that it's almost become a canned response, but like the endless pursuit of perfection. It's like we're never fully there.
We're never there.
And in my world, the really fun thing that we have the opportunity to do is with every project, we get to hit the reset button and find different architects that have different ideas, that approach things differently. And for me to find, an architect that is like truly world-class, that has that like unicorn talent, and then for me to have to actually like adjust the way that I manage them, that really, for me, it's almost like muscle confusion at CrossFit or something.
Right.
It's something that kind of keeps me fresh.
But good for you for doing that, because a lot of developers don't. You said it. I mean, how many of the same thing can we do?
Oh, sure. Well, it's the work that we all do is so capital intensive.
Right.
There's so much risk.
Yes.
There's a discipline. Obviously, you can't be totally crazy.
Right.
But to keep it fresh is so critical.
So we have to talk about Ponce City Market, of course.
Yeah.
Funny, as an Atlanta native, and I may get the story wrong, so Mom, if you ever, but apparently my great-grandfather was run over by a horse and buggy in front of, this is a true story, Nebraska Palmer was his name.
Wow.
And he was run over by a horse and buggy, and my mother's 88. This was the 40s and 50s. They used to come shop at the Sears store when it first opened. And it just sat there forever. You would drive up and down Ponce, and we were working on the Claremont Hotel, and then suddenly it was announced that Jamestown was going to take it. And what was you were the head of development at that point?
So Catherine Kelly was my boss, and she was the head of development for Jamestown. I was hired, and one of the greatest privileges in our business that I was ever given is like, you get to focus on one thing. And that was another really powerful lesson for me, is that my only job was Ponce for 6 years. And that was an incredible incredible gift because it meant I could focus on every molecule and not get distracted by
Right.
lots of different processes.
Right.
And it was obviously an enormous team, an enormous project. But my job was to kind of be effectively like the producer of that
Right.
movie, if that makes sense.
What were the surprises along the way? Did it end up the way y'all wanted it to? Was it better? Did you have to make decisions? Because my experience with renovating with historic adaptive reuse is it's always more expensive than you think it's going to be.
Of course.
There are gifts that keep giving.
Yes.
And they're irreplaceable at the same time.
Totally.
What were the surprises in Ponce City Market?
I think the surprises were, I would sort of maybe say it two ways. Like every day there was a surprise. Every day it was, the unforeseen. The word we use is the unforeseen conditions, and
Right.
And I mean that every day was an unforeseen condition. And
Right.
I mean you start peeling off layers and trying to find. I mean that the magic of any adaptive reuse project is like you have to start very slowly peeling layers away, but just knowing when to stop.
Right.
Because everything has been covered, uncovered, and things that we thought would be true weren't. Like, here's a random one. The Ponce is actually, the Sears building was built in 4 phases.
Yeah.
1926, 29, 1936, and then 1966. 46 and then 66. And, and the brick is all kind of the same color, but it turns out we had no idea. But the part of the building that was in the worst condition was actually the 1966 wing. You'd think it'd be the opposite.
I'm not surprised, so for some reason.
And I remember like going up, and I literally like got up in a scaffold because I wanted to really challenge the guys, and they kept saying like, Mr. Irwin, this is the worst piece, and I said that doesn't make any sense. And I was up in the scaffolding talking to the mason. He's like, yeah, man, like in '66, all the good masons were in Vietnam.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
And he reached in, and I'll never forget this. He reached into the cavity of the building because the concrete CMU blocks they'd actually been put sideways, which is not structurally adequate.
Right.
And first of all, I'm like, that's not good. But he reached in and he pulled out a burger wrapper from the '60s, and it had just been shoved with stuff, And there were, just hundreds and hundreds of stories like that of just things you find good and bad. Another one is like when we took the old City Hall East signs off the building, and the old original Sears and Roebuck, stone edge signs were there.
Yeah.
It was just such a gift to be able to again focus on one thing for that long. The other gift, was really I really became like a docent, really, this like curator of this building.
Yeah.
Because anyone who grew up in Atlanta, it's just been this 2 million square foot thing that's been sitting here
forever.
For anyone who's been living, it's been there longer than anyone alive.
Right.
And so just the gifts of all these stories that people would just bring, and so we ended up actually hiring somebody to like try to capture all those.
Oh wow!
Just because it was just too much. Like,
right.
So I remember like 15 different people came and said like, right in that room, that's where I proposed to my wife, or that's,
oh wow,
I got my first job here, or I worked on that floor, or I did this, and just amazing stories. And then of course there was that season after Sears had closed when you'd have another group of people that go,
there was
2 a.m. I remember it was my friend who kind of messed up. We had to come get his car in the basement. You know? So, but there's just
a different set of stories.
Such a fun, just hundreds and hundreds of stories like that.
What's the thing you're most proud of on that project?
I think Atlanta, we have like amazing attractions. But there wasn't that place that, like, if your friends were coming in for the weekend,
Right.
it was like that great adult place that, like, is really like an iconic thing that is so deeply associated with the city that you're like, it's like instantly, we got to go to see, Ponce.
Yeah.
It's that place to, like, show off the city, and the Beltline and Ponce kind of came at the same time. And, my whole life, Atlanta hasn't, you don't think of Atlanta as like a cool town. Like, oh, I got to go see New York, or,
Right.
New York or LA or whatever.
Right, of course.
But I'm like proud that we're kind of like creeping back. And,
Yeah.
the other day, not to bounce around, but I was
bounce.
I was riding an elevator here at the Fourth. This was like 2 months ago, and there was a technology conference going on, and this guy I was just trying to be polite, and the guy brought in a rollerboard, and I sort of stepped out of the way, and I said, "Oh, hey, welcome to Atlanta. Where are you from?" And he said, "Oh, I just got in from San Francisco." I said, "Oh, that's great. Have you ever been to Atlanta before?" And he said, "No, but Atlanta's kind of cool."
Love that.
And I was like, "Okay, be cool," because that's not how it's ever been.
Right.
But I think what I'm really proud about is just that it's given a place for the city to kind of rally around and enjoy and come together.
Right. And then you made the move to go out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And you didn't just go out on your own in a small way.
Well,
you took a big swing.
Well, thank you. It really was not. I think it honestly just felt like gravity. It was this thing that just needed to be done. So that story begins in like 2013. Our city councilman, Kwanzaa Hall, during that season, who's a great friend, would often call and give me, 20 minutes heads up. Hey, I've got somebody in town and I want to show them Ponce. It's like, great.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, sort of an open door policy. And so in this particular instance, he had requested that some senior people from Kroger come to visit and see what was happening in the old Fourth Ward and the Beltline. And, the Kroger across the way had a pretty poor nickname and a reputation.
The murder Kroger.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think he was wanting to gently encourage them to give it a facelift or do something to help out.
Right.
And so at the end of that tour, the folks from Kroger had just had huge eyes, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's something's happening in this neighborhood."
Right.
And it was one of the poorer performing Krogers in Metro Atlanta, literally across the street from the highest performing Whole Foods in Atlanta.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they were like, "We've got to do something." And a couple of days later, they called me and they said, "Hey, do you think you could help?" And I think what they meant by that was like, "Can you help us get rid of this albatross name we have?"
Right.
And figure out a way for the neighborhood to like us more. But while I was still at Jamestown, I started working on this concept for them, and to make kind of a long story short, we had just gotten out of the Great Recession.
Yep.
and Jamestown, I fully intended to work on it, while I was at Jamestown, and Ponce was obviously a 6-year difficult slog, and
Right.
and I think Jamestown was, at the time, they were thinking about sort of strategically shifting back to their core competency, which was acquiring in place assets all over the globe, and
Right.
for lots of different reasons, they said no thanks. Kroger still wanted to do it, and so it kind of made sense to step up and try to figure it out. And so with Jamestown's blessing, I sort of just moved across the street. And to make a long story short, New City's global headquarters was in the attic of the Ford factory for 3 years, and got to be great friends with the owners of the Ford factory and a lot of the residents. And it was a great perch to sort of oversee the project. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean, the architecture, which is, I mean, there's modern buildings in Atlanta, but not at that level. And it feels like being here in the mix of all your buildings, although they're different architects, you have a certain style. Would you agree with that, or would you?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. I don't know.
I mean, it's modern, right?
Yeah, it's certainly modern. I think that really at the heart of what ties it all together is I want to create things that at the same time are iconic but also blend in. That sort of like, I think the thing about 725 that I'm super proud of is that, I had a chance to work with S9, who is just an amazingly talented team. And because the reason we actually, the story is interesting. So I called my friends at S9 when I was starting New City, and it was far enough along that it started to make sense to really think about what the architecture should look like. And I said, guys, I feel like I'm having a bit of a crisis because I don't want New City's first project to just be something bland. This has really got to be a calling card. What kind of style should we look at? And they said, we got it. Just come to New York. And they gave me an address of a project that they had worked on, and it was actually an early building in Dumbo.
Okay.
And so I remember I flew into LaGuardia, just took a day trip. I was going to have lunch with him after, and I went straight to this building, and it was a brutalist, exposed concrete structure that had been built between 3 historic brick warehouses. And it was the first building in Dumbo that had been approved by their historic preservation board in like 20 something years.
Oh, wow.
And the reason is because, it still had that kind of gritty industrial character, but it also stood apart. It wasn't trying to mimic history.
Right.
And it was just like another moment where the clouds parted, the sun shone down, and I think that was a really sort of seminal moment for my own learning, because it was like it fit in, it was perfect. I wonder about that time, because Dumbo's pretty busy, and I'm sitting there like hugging a building, like touching it and like looking, it was pretty creepy. But,
I love that.
But it was it was just like, okay, this is what works around historic buildings, because what I didn't want to do is just build another brick building 10 feet away from Ponce City Market to make it look old. And I knew enough then to know that was wrong, but I didn't know, what to do in lieu of. And it was like, this is it. We got to do it. And what a gift that one of the greatest GCs in America, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best concrete companies, Brassfield and Gorey, is right here in Atlanta.
They're right here, yeah.
And so, they agreed to, again, like with New City 1.0 with just 3 people, I felt like I had to convince them to take this seriously, but they did, and it ended up great.
It really is impressive, because before I ever met you, one of the things I've heard was, I mean, he's got like 3 people in his office. Yeah. How is he doing all this? Because you kind of, I want to talk for a minute about Newhoff, and then want to really talk about about Fourth. But so, how were you getting all that done? Necessity, trying to keep your overhead.
Course.
I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No. It's just pure need, and
Right.
And I mean, you understand that it's the entrepreneur's dilemma. It's like the buck stops with you, and it's like if the alarm goes off at 2 a.m, it's like there's no looking around. It's like this is it. Yeah. And so I had at a particularly stressful moment at Ponce City Market when just we were finding out all sorts of stuff, and we're really still trying to figure out the budget. Jamestown is an impressive company, lots of employees. It's people, 4 or 5 offices in America, obviously German.
Right.
And but I remember like waking up at 2 a.m. during a particularly stressful season and thinking like, it's a huge company, but like there's only really 2 or 3 of us that really know everything there needs to be known about this big 2 million square foot building. It was a big building.
Right.
And then I started looking around at other companies and how they were structured. And regardless of how big the company was, it's like 2 or 3 people kind of are managing any one project at any given time.
Sure.
And I just remember thinking like, that's a really empowering idea that like, if I ever do get to start a company, if we do a few, scaled big projects at a time, we don't have to grow to be a huge company.
Right.
And I don't think I would necessarily be a great manager of like a large company.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I almost want to turn the tables and ask you that.
Yeah.
But I think I love the creation so
sure.
much.
Yeah.
And because of the nature of what we do, every project is new, and I don't ever want to get too far away from that. And so what we've done is we've kind of had this amazing group. We're now 11, which feels like a lot.
Right.
But what's fun is like everyone's cross-trained, and some people are more responsible for some than others, but everyone touches every project.
Right. That's interesting. Were you ever, I probably know the answer to this, were you ever afraid in the beginning with 725?
Oh,
were there a lot of sleepless nights?
No, I was afraid 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Yeah.
I have moments when I'm not afraid that are become more memorable than.
No, that's true.
Because that is a big project. I'm not asking for development costs, but there's a lot of zeros in building 725.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a small development project.
Yeah. The thing I don't experience it that way though. Like the cost. I mean, it is. I think the thing that if you can find the power of a performance, like if you can find an idea that where the cost makes sense and the eventual rents will justify it, I think it would be crippling to live with the weight of all the zeros in that.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we have to be stewards of the execution instead, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for our investors, it's like we have to treat a project that is $10 million with the same level of rigor and discipline as we would $100 million or $1 billion.
Yeah.
And just because the numbers are just in service of building this thing.
Right.
And so what makes me nervous more than anything is when we're working on something and I don't feel like I have complete command of a detail or something that's happening.
Right.
And that's really we've developed, over the years with our team. It's like it's a pretty tight communication protocol just so we all kind of know what's going on.
Right. Talk about Newhoff. I have a restaurant in Germantown, Oku, and we'll soon have a
Spectacular
second one.
restaurant, by the
Oh,
way.
well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, yeah. No,
Thank
it's
you.
true. Yeah.
Thank you. We've done very well
It's
there.
like our cafeteria.
And I love that neighbor. I mean, like I looked for 5 years. I was like, it needs to be in Germantown.
Sure.
I just knew. But that, the old historic buildings there were a slaughterhouse. They were empty for a long. I mean, relatively. There was a pop up like leather goods store that
Peter
was there.
Nappy, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Knapp. Thank you. I knew I couldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was about it.
Sure.
How did that all come to pass?
Yeah, so the reason Germantown is named that is because Mr. Newhoff in 1906 moved from Germany and brought several hundred German immigrants
See, I didn't
to
know
live
this.
there. Yeah.
This is why I like doing podcasts.
Yeah. So and we have some amazing old documentary footage about how sort of but basically he came to America and felt like the meatpacking business was ripe for innovation, and built a modern meatpacking plant.
Okay.
And brought a lot of German immigrants to work there, and operated it. And then in the 30s, I think he sold it to Swift, which was another company that was kind of trying to create a oligopoly of meatpacking in the Southeast.
Oh, yeah.
So White Provisions here in Atlanta was owned by Swift as well. And, and they owned sort of, all over the East Coast, and it kind of operated for many years until the late 70s, and it had changed hands by then a few times.
Right.
And so the McRedmond family took ownership of it in the late 70s, operated it for a couple of years, and then it shuttered, I think, in 1982, and it basically sat there since then.
Wow.
And over the years, it was a big family, 10 siblings, the sons and daughters of Mr. McRedmond, and a couple of them really fought hard to save it, and it kind of had to be some family members buying out others, but there were a few people who were really, really committed to keeping it around, and one of the brothers in particular had a vision of kind of creating a cultural center for the city, and he passed away. One of his sisters and her husband moved into the building and lived there for 14 years as like caretakers, basically.
Oh, wow.
And so they were the ones that signed the lease with Peter Nappy, and John Prine's writing studio was there.
Yeah.
And, the Nashville Jazz Workshop and a bunch of other sort of, there's like a law firm with two people. And, when we were doing our due diligence, JP Morgan again is our investor there, and you can imagine doing a level of due diligence for JP Morgan and seeing like all these leases were like on napkins and receipts, and they were sort of like, I don't hear, this ball of paper. But the story is that they had been approached, as Nashville has been kind of taking off like a rocket. They had been approached by so many people that were looking to purchase the property because it's a beautiful piece of land.
It's stunning.
But no one would commit to save the building, which was their brother's vision. And almost in exasperation, one of the sisters said, I just wish we could meet whoever did Ponce City Market and get them to come up here. And she said it, to a friend of mine. And he said, well, I know Jim. I'll call him. And so I got this text from a friend who's a good enough friend that he knew he would call and I would answer. And he said, hey, I know you're going to say no. I know you're busy. Because again, we're having this, this first huge project. We were only halfway done with construction. And he said, I really, really would like you to come see this as a favor. And I said, okay, fine. And he texted me this address. And a few weeks later, I drove up. And to make a long story short, I fell in love with this place, even though it was...
How could you not?
One section of the building. I remember the first time I toured, I sort of leaned up against it, and like 5 stories of bricks were swaying, and there were like Jumanji roots coming up through the building, and there was no roof, and there was a standing foot of water in the basement. But it was just this magical place. It felt like, like a fairy tale with a castle that had, been sleeping for decades. And we figured it out. And again, just just so much faith from JP Morgan, and then cousins as well, who co-invested to trust us to sort of repurpose it and save it and build adjacent to it. So.
And you're partially open now, yeah?
Yeah.
And when will it all be done?
So the construction is done,
right?
And the apartments have been open since September, and at least we're probably 65 or 70% leased by this point there. The office, we've had our first tenants move in several months ago, and that's going well. And now we're just starting to open up the retail and restaurants. And
very cool. Yeah. So I've seen some announcement. So what in the world from all of that possessed you to want to own a hotel? Because we kind of have mixed use. We have office.
Yeah.
And now, and not just any hotel.
Right.
150 room. Most first time, I think I said this to you once, like, Jim, you went a little big for your first hotel. What made you want to do this thing?
Well, I mean, I know we're like-minded in this way, and you'll appreciate this. Like, I didn't realize the power of the language of hospitality that I've been using this whole time.
Yeah. You're in hospitality, whether you realize,
and I didn't.
Yeah, no.
But again, if you begin, I realized, like, I had almost been thinking about placemaking, like physical bricks and mortar, sort of like the way you talk passionately about your business. It's like when you are welcoming someone into what is effectively your home, you want to create an experience for them.
Yep.
You want to be mindful of details of they could. I've heard you tell this story a million times. Like,
service is transactional. Hospitality is how we make you feel.
That's right.
They're very different things.
And just the attention to detail that your staff has, with someone who may be having a bad day.
Right. That's right.
Versus people who were, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you had this really amazing image of, like, when people are focused on each other, the idea is leave them alone. When they're sort of not focused and they're looking around, that's the time to hit them,
to engage
them and strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
And so, whenever you're in an Indigo Road, space, that you just feel that service and the intentionality.
Well, thank you.
There.
That's the mission, right?
Right.
That's at the end of the day. I spoke this morning at a conference, and at the end of the day, if hospitality is how we make you feel, right? And I believe that can be transformational for people, like life-altering when they receive hospitality.
Absolutely.
It's the people that are making that happen, and you better be working on that all the time. I always think about Simon Sinek's Infinite Game, that book, which I love, and I've heard him speak to that. We all have those cliche sayings, it's not about the destination, it's the journey.
Right.
But, like, you got to be in love with the hamster wheel.
Right.
Like, because tomorrow's a new service. Guests are checking out today.
Yes.
It's rinse and repeat and if you don't love the pursuit,
right.
We're pursuing excellence. But, the Japanese have a saying called omotenashi, which means to wholeheartely serve our guests. But for them, it's more of a state of conscience. Like, I hope I achieve omotenashi today. It's not a fixed thing. It's like this state we're trying to, and that to me says it all about hospital. We're trying to create a sense of well-being and restorative emotion for people, that when you do that, it changed my life, right? Like, when I came into the industry,
right?
But I think it changes guests. Those are memories they have forever.
And again, like, what what a deep privilege to have created a place where people want to spend their time creating memories like that.
Right.
And so that to me is the most fun, rewarding part of what we do is, like I tell the story, like the first time I months after the Fort Wayne project opened, somebody texted me a photo of a couple that had gotten married, out in the outfield.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I cried because it was like,
That's, yeah.
wow, like
Yep.
that was like, wow, I've had a part of that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
somebody wanted to do that. And I remember another time when I kind of laughed, but I cried again, where I had this great picture of a dad with his arm wrapped around his son, and he was sort of kneeling and pointing up at Ponce City Market and talking about the history of the building, and everything that he said was completely wrong. But
wow.
But just the fact that it was like this moment
For him, yeah.
And he was talking about the history, and it was just, he was totally off. But it was like, man, he cares, and it's like his son's going to remember being here for the first time.
Yeah.
And
So the vision for Fourth, I always want to say the Fourth, but it's Fourth, because it's you've got a private club, you have Electra, the Mediterranean restaurant, you've got Il Premio. This is a two-sided question. Tell me about that process.
Sure.
How because that's big dreaming, right? And how different did it end up from your original vision?
Yeah, that's a great. I'm still learning the answer.
The vision is evolving, right?
Yeah. No. I think the part that makes sense to me is again, like, if the goal is creating experience and creating iconic places that blend in seamlessly, I would say the added vision, really, my goal for the Fourth Ward was, as a native Atlantan, I just have the benefit of knowing the city, having grown up here,
Right.
And we've always been a city that has done things super fast, and we are a city that hustles, that a city that sees a great idea and executes it quickly.
Right.
You name it down the line, the airport, the Olympics,
Right.
the aquarium,
Yeah.
and on and on and on. It's like we're really, really good at moving quickly, and it's an incredibly business friendly city. But if you think about those great iconic gateway cities, one of the things is that they also have great architecture. And if you think about this, what goes into that, it's the business communities that can support the kind of art and architecture that, you can then build into a pro forma,
Right.
to make it work. And
Right.
so I think for me, aspirationally for my hometown, it's like, I want that for Atlanta too. And if I can be a little bit creative, I can figure out a way to take these huge ideas and make them scalable for what, our city can afford. And that felt like a big idea at the time. And so the whole thesis for the Fourth Ward project here was, we're going to go find architects who've never worked in Atlanta before, bring them here, have totally fresh eyes, completely fresh perspective, aren't, held back by, this is how we always do it.
Right.
That mentality.
Yeah.
And then kind of, I can be the person that's sort of being the foreign language translator to say, okay, brilliant idea. This is sort of a achievable way for Atlantans,
Right.
culturally. And so that mentality of, like, the hospitality approach to an office development or multifamily development, the feeling that I want our partners and tenants and, everyone enjoying the buildings every day. What I say in an office context is, when I'm leading a tour, I was like, how would you actually like to enjoy where you come to work every day?
Right.
And not just the people you work with, but actually where you work.
Where you work.
And people start kind of snickering and then they realize I'm serious and they
Right.
go, oh. And then I kind of take it a step further and talk about just even the experience of parking, if it's easy, if it's
Right.
smooth, if the elevator is decorated in an unexpected way, the lobby's thoughtful, and just the amenities around you. And, you know, in this case, the belt line, if you might even be able to bike to work if you want. And,
Right.
and so, you know, that's the language that I'm using. And it's like, well, sure, we can do that in a hotel too.
Right.
And then a bit naively realizing that, you know, instead of a 5 or 10 year lease, we're talking about a one night lease
Right.
here.
Right.
And to your point, we set up and redo it every day.
Every day.
And so architecturally, you know, that felt like something that we could obviously pull off.
And you've done it.
Well, but I my job is to corral the really talented people and focus them on a vision. You know, I'd never designed a hotel before,
Right.
but you know, I was able to find a lot of really, really, really talented people who knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then back to Fort Wayne, you know, my job's just to ask a lot of questions and be curious and say, why does it work that way? And why do we need that many elevators? And how should the kitchens be on the ground and floor, or how should we think of, you know, and
Right.
and
Of
if
course.
people can kind of defend their ideas, and
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, let's do that. But
Let's do that.
in the event when they can't, well, why not? And then,
Right.
you know, so that's really the job. And then the other thing that's really fun to do is find really, really passionate people who are really, really talented and great at what they've done, and then find out what makes them tick, and then try to extract greatness out of them. And so one of the things I'm most proud of, that's another kind of geeky detail, is that this building, you know, with the diamond pattern, it's called a structural die grid. And
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah.
And there are lots and lots of this type of building around the world. Most 99% of them are actually built out of steel because they can be fabricated off site,
Right.
shipped in, and then just placed by a crane. This is the world's first 4-sided cast in place concrete structural die grid.
Whoa.
It had only been done twice before out of structural cast in place concrete, which as opposed to like pouring it off site in trays
Right.
and then putting it
Propping
in.
up.
But
Whose idea was that?
it was a common, like I was the stubborn one that was sort of encouraging everybody that we could do it, you know? But really our structural engineers from Uzen and Case partnered with Brassfield and Gorey, who actually had to figure out how to do it.
Right.
You know, my job was just to be pushy and encourage and say, we can do it, guys, let's go. And then, but then there were a couple of times when my friends at Brassfield would say, you know, they kind of pull me aside before a big meeting and they'll say, you really got to push us now because this is really hard. Like, you know, this is pretty nuts because no one had ever done it before. And again, it's not totally reinventing things because concrete's concrete, but it's just pushing and really trying to figure out a new way to do it. And so the end of that story was Rob Weilacher, who's a brilliant structural engineer, at the topping out party when the concrete was just dry, there's a sort of, we call it the crown, but that like horizontal beam that sits at the top of the building. He came up and gave me a huge hug, and this is a structural engineer, who's a brilliant guy,
Right.
and he came up and gave me a huge hug at the topping out party, and he said, Jim, you know, I just want to let you know I'm so relieved. And I said, Rob, why relieved? What I thought you'd say something like happy or
Right.
proud. He's like, well, I didn't want to tell you this, but the building wasn't 100% structurally sound until that top beam went into place.
I love that.
But the concrete stripes, and we're fine now. It's going to be
Right,
fine.
right.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's great. So I was like, Rob, why didn't you tell me that, dude?
I love that.
He's like, I wasn't going to tell you. I was like, okay. But this is actually, it's not decorative. It's actually the columns
Structural,
in the
yeah.
building. So there aren't any interior columns. And again, it's fun to be able to say like the first is in Atlanta.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. Will you do another hotel?
I think so. Yeah. I have to, the one of the things that I'm really, really proud of is the club.
Yeah.
And that to me is really, in this particular instance, when you come here and spend the night, we wanted you to feel like you're a member of the club
Right.
for a night, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the lobby, it's subtle, but everything's sort of intended to sort of bring you in and make you feel like you're part of something.
You did it.
And it's not just a transactional place,
Sure.
but or a place to check the box. But it's something that sort of like makes you sit up and get off your phone and look around and
Right.
take it in. And the club, I also wanted it to be really one of the things about Atlanta's history, as you know, is like it's always had really great places for people to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And one of Atlanta's superpowers is just the age and stage, race, and always diversity of our city.
Right.
And the Commerce Club in the 50s and 60s, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
was just an amazing place where like Mayor Ivan Allen
Yep.
and Martin Luther King
Mm-hmm.
came together to meet,
Yep.
to talk about the city, to work out differences and take our city forward together. And I really hope that's why we actually named this building the Fourth, Forth, instead of Fourth Ward, FOUR. It's my favorite. Now I'm going to show you my English major. My favorite Ellsworth poem says, go forth into the world and learn to love it,
Mm-hmm.
mingle kindly with its joys and sorrows. And so one of the sort of catchphrases on the back of coasters is like mingle kindly. But I want this to be a place where, people come together and work out issues in our city
Right.
and carry it forward. And so the club is, I'm really, really proud of the fact that, the members of the club are just kind of make up it feels like kind of a greatest hits album of
Right.
Atlantans. And we're still in the early days and, still need more members, but we're still working out the daily
always.
excellence.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it feels like it's headed for a good place.
Right. What does hospitality mean to you?
I think hospitality, I really, more than anything, I care deeply that people are able, in this time when we are so distracted by everything around us, we have gadgets
Yeah.
and everything just sort of ripping at our attention all the time.
Right.
To me, what real hospitality, the gift of it is that it helps people for a moment feel really human.
Yeah.
It makes people feel fully in touch with themselves and with the people that they're spending time with, where they're able to make real analog human connections and actually feel honored and appreciated. And that to me is like the greatest gift you can give anybody, is just to love someone that way. And whether that be, if they're a guest in the hotel or, signing a year lease
Right.
in an apartment. It's like when you can create a place where people where they're proud of, when they want to literally like get to know their neighbors, and I think it just leads to, honestly, just a richer life,
Right.
just a richer experience when you feel more awake and less distracted. And
That's one of the best descriptions I've heard. I ask that question to all of our guests. What's your hope for the industry going forward?
I think,
Whether it be hospitality development or delivery, because you're on all sides of it now. You're in it, man.
Lord help me.
You are in it, man.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
The first time you stayed here, you reminded me of that. I was like, "What do you mean?" And now I know what you mean. I know what you
Now
mean.
you know.
My hope is that for the industry is that we continue to all have the courage to try new things, to do things that are original, that and try and fail, but to try, and to not give up the idea that like we can create really rich contextual experiences for people that are deeply rooted in whatever the community is that place, that where that place is, and just it's like our architects call it like human-centric design,
Right.
which is, I think, part of it. It's not just about the touch of a handle or the taste of an oyster, but it's like we really have the opportunity to create immersive experiences where people are able to have really, really rich connection.
Love that. What keeps you up at night? What does Jim Irwin fear the most?
I mean, I think that we missed the mark.
Okay.
I think an obvious answer to the question would just be sort of the economic uncertainty that we're in.
Sure.
All those things, and that's all true. But I think as long as we can continue to create really rich experiences that actually earn returns for our investors, I can't personally control the economy and things of that nature. So we just have to keep working to do the best we can and deliver when it makes sense, strike when the iron's hot, and honestly, put this back on you. My job is really, I use the analogy of a movie producer. Another analogy when I'm trying to explain, because it's a hard job to explain, because I touch everything, but I really don't do anything.
Understood. Yeah.
It's like an orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
And I, which means I like wave my arms around and look silly, but but the power of the job is that I get to pick the music, right?
Right.
I get to pick
Sure.
what piece to play, and kind of how it's played. But as I get older and time goes on, what I've realized is the just absolute criticality of the people playing the music, how essential it is that they actually want to play.
Right.
Yeah. And that they enjoy playing.
Amen.
And it's not just about the audience, but the experience really starts with the players.
With each other.
And so really those partnerships, like with you,
Right.
honestly, like the fact that you could come in and see 725 and say, oh yeah, I get this. Like
Right.
absolutely all day long.
Right.
and you could see through. I mean, it was purposefully quirky, to build a Class A, beautiful office building above a grocery store was not the most obvious thing.
No.
But for somebody, to have friends who say, "Hey, I'm in. Like, this is great. Let's just do it." I mean, that to me is like really, really powerful. And
love that.
And just to want to build places where, the best in the industry are like, "Hey, if you're in it, I'm in it. Like, let's go." And that to me is the greatest privilege.
I love that. Last question. So the title of this podcast and my book is Say Grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I had somebody at one point say, "Are you worried that that's going to turn people off? Because it sounds a little religious."
Right.
And I said, well, growing up in the South on Sunday,
Totally.
when we held hands, we said grace.
Absolutely.
And really what we were saying was, what were we thankful for?
Right.
So what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful that one doesn't take time. I'm thankful for friends who understand the way that I think and are able, without even uttering a word, to speak encouragement and to also be able to reciprocate and encourage those who are in this world that's hard. It's definitionally hard. Every time.
Yes, getting harder.
It's right.
Getting harder.
And so to be in the middle of a really, really hard moment and to see you sitting in the lobby.
Oh, that's sweet.
And just because you get all this and and for you sitting in the lobby to say a kind word.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is honestly, that is like fuel for a month. And then to be able to then turn and give that to others is such a gift.
I love that. Well, Jim, thank you.
Keep
doing what you're doing because it's fascinating. I haven't been through Neuhoff in a minute. I need to, so I look forward to seeing how it's come along.
Yeah.
And this is the only hotel I'll ever stay at in Atlanta, forever and always. So thanks for being on Say Grace.
It's such an honor. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We hope you liked what you heard. If you did, tell your friends. We're on all the major platforms. Thanks for tuning in to Say Grace. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.